KC Talks. I'm again with Dr. Sahadeva Dasa, ISKCON President Secunderabad, and he's an ICC chairman. So it's been a long time I had a podcast with him, but today there is a big boiling issue happening in India. So you all know what has happened with Ranveer Allahbadia and beer biceps. There are a lot of narratives. Some say it is good, some say it is bad, but most of the people condemned it. But let us understand on this situation from a monk. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, आपको तो you have seen the entire thing that is happening over internet for the last two
Well,
days.
we keep updated when what's happening in society. We should know. So yes, it is in the news everywhere. So we are aware of what's kind of happening. Yes.
So, what's your take on that, Swamiji?
It's painful to see the society degenerating, our standards falling constantly, and new normals. We are reaching new normals. What was something unheard of, something which was not proper, becoming the new normal. So it is not a very happy sight. Absolutely no.
So, cases have been filed everywhere.
Yes.
People are speaking about it.
Yes, they
Uh,
should. That's a that I think that's a saving grace, or that's good to its heartening that some sanity is good to see some sanity is left.
So he has made a good career for himself. Smart boy. So he came up. He started doing his podcasting, building his body. So this channel he named it as Beer Biceps. So it's a transformation of a kid from a very now very abnormal according to you to a nice person hosting all the VVIPs.
Yeah, okay. I'd like to add a point that you do a lot of good. It's like you have a very clean shirt, but um, sannyasi ralpa chidra sarvaloka gaya. So you do one bad thing, one improper dealing that gets. So one has to be constantly on guard against improper dealings, against violating the etiquettes, familial, social, moral, ethical etiquettes. One has to be always on guard. So just like I always feed you, let's say, take for an example, then one day I slap you. So 1 month of feeding will be nullified by one slap.
Yeah.
So point is, one one has to be always on guard. Is that's why they say health is money is lost, nothing is lost. Health is lost, something is lost, because you can get back. Character is lost, everything is lost.
Very good.
So one has to be always on guard, and boli and goli,
Hmm.
these things cannot be retracted.
Yeah. Words and bullet. Once
So one has to
once
be
fired
watchful,
can't be taken
we
back.
cannot be frivolous and, you
No,
know,
but let us
yeah.
understand one thing about the situation, Swamiji. So he hosted a lot of spiritual people.
Mm,
He hosted some of the good top ISKCON monks also.
right,
He hosted, Jai Shankar,
right.
Subramanya Swami, a lot of celebrities,
Mm,
VVIPs.
mm,
But one point is, so let us understand from this generation.
mm.
So he has got to it is not a show, he has got to a show which is considered to be a cool show.
Let me just reply on this point. Hosting the shows, obviously, I'm aware that a lot of people from spiritual backgrounds have been his guests.
Hmm.
Thing is, it is you may host without believing. Internet is a frivolous place.
Hmm.
So it's like a parrot learns to chant, Rama Rama or Krishna Krishna. And when the cat comes, he forgets about his chants. He starts cawing,
Hmm.
So point is, I may be hosting, but I may not believe a word of what they are saying, I'm just saying, I'm not aware of the whole personalities of people. I'm just saying that for the sake of TRP, a lot of our, influencers, they do a lot of things.
Hmm.
So they may not be actually believing in the tenets,
No, that's
but
understood now.
that's okay. Yeah,
Across the net,
continue.
people are calling him hypocrisy. People are saying that
I
just
see. I see.
he wanted to
You
use
see,
spiritual.
I am not. I should admit that I am not completely. I know things, but I won't be like I'm not super updated
Yeah,
on that particular gentleman or whatever. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So yeah,
continue.
whatever you said, people are also saying that it is
Hmm.
just a he wants to have subscribers, and he wants to have viewership,
Hmm.
audience. So he uses that platform to bring monks, because there is a separate audience for monks, a separate audience for comedy and all of stuff. So yeah, so he's been labeled now as a big hypocrite who has
I
used
see.
spirituality in his platform to grow his viewerships and subscriber base. But it all showed in it. But my whole point is, whether he's hypocrite or not is not the subject matter of debate. I want to understand this, that the modern generation, when they see each other,
Mm.
when they interact with their friends, vulgarity, cracking jokes on
Mm.
sex, cracking jokes on filthy words, filthy languages, it has become a today's normalcy for a generation like that. When we were growing up as a kid, so we
Mm.
were not, we might be using one two, but people were getting very offended those days, even carelessly. If you use a word, if you scold somebody's mother, if you scold somebody's sister, people were getting offended. But today's generation, I'm seeing it is, they are labeling it cool to address each other with a gali.
You see, what happens is the society evolves new normals. Something which was considered very which was socially censored becomes completely normal if very many people are doing it. So, for example, let me start with modesty, dressing sense. In America, there was a time, I'm just talking 100 years back. There was a time in America, a man on the beach cannot be topless.
Hmm.
If you see the older movies, everybody has got is wearing their hats, men and women, because again, I'm not saying you got to do it. I'm just saying what was the tradition. Because if the hair is not covered, that person was considered not properly dressed. And in our things, our hair covering is a part of civilized, part considered civilized dressing. A person is considered nude if the hairs are not covered for some reason. Anyway, so covering of hair, if you see olden photos of America, even Charlie Chaplin,
Yeah.
he is he is falling off, but then he making sure to put his hat
Hat on.
right back
Mm,
on.
yeah.
So I'm not saying the what's right or wrong. I'm just saying this was the entire. If you see New York crowd, everybody is wearing a hat. But then the beaches you see 100 years back, 120 years back, beaches had inspectors and there was a strict dress code. Today, even nudity or no pants day they have. You can go to your work without pants on. In just your inner wear, you can go to your work. So society, when the it becomes new normals, like abortion. End of the day is killing a baby, and if you see the silent scream movie, you know how the baby screams when the baby is being cut to pieces. After all, baby has consciousness. So it became a new in America. It was a big crime, and the case versus Roe versus Wade, whatever that 70s made it, Supreme Court. Then it became a normal. Otherwise, it was a crime there also. So today, mass murder of babies is a normal thing. So what happens is the society, and in 1929 or something, a girl attended what you call. Again, I'm not saying this is a judge, normal T-shirt or whatever, and that was not the judge actually. as per their local, their whatever judge actually censured her or kind of, threatened ki I'll be. I'm not saying, I'm not talking again of moral policing. I leave it to them, people, they let them. I'm not trying to moral. I'm just saying the society, the standards evolve or degenerate, whatever the name you say it. Same thing applies to speech, you know.
Mm.
So what has happened is we have one thing you have to admit is we are dealing with frivolity, frivolous generation who, if they are frivolous, not serious in life, and what you speak actually, what you think, what we become that. So Gita, as you say, dhyato vishyantum sa sangasteshu. You see, what you everything is what you think then becomes your speech. What you speak then becomes your hobby, or your mindset. So we are a function of our company, our circumstances. So I feel the younger generation will lose the plot. If you are not serious about your talks, how can you be serious in your life?
They say it is ambiguous statement. They can be very jovial in their words, and still they can be very good in their life. See this example. He has made good for himself.
Yeah.
Both of those guys on whom the affair is filed today,
Uh,
the guy who runs that show, India Got Latent. So, very abnormal, very filthy language, adult jokes, you know, all.
Actually, you see, freedom of speech.
Hmm,
This is probably the most misused term, you know.
hmm,
Freedom of speech is only freedom as far it can be allowed as long as it doesn't encroach on somebody else's freedom. Here is a responsible parent, worried parent. He wants to bring up his or her ward. He or she wants to bring up their ward properly, bring up in responsible manner. So your propagation or talking usage, public usage of your terminology may be encroaching upon that gentleman's what you call freedom, that his freedom to bring up her words, responsible, make them responsible citizens. So society cannot be a free for all in the name of, okay, it's India is a free country, then why do you restrict me to the left lane in while driving? Why do you want me to stop at the red signal? India is a free. We became free 1947 because your freedom has to come with a set of restriction. That's where freedom comes within the purview of the law. So these things should be discussed. These things should be checked. Life is a serious business, and frivolity and non talking rubbish and all this just people emulate, masses emulate. When you yatha raja tatha praja yaded acharati sreshthas. So these influencer, word influencer itself, you are influencing masses,
yeah.
and they shouldn't be allowed to get away with whatever they set the trends, there
Hmm.
should be, I would say, I mean, I'm not somebody to recommend, but some societies are trying to protect. You say Chinese
Hmm.
with folded hands, we don't recommend, they restrict. But if this is the freedom, then better have some censorship. If that is called freedom,
Yeah.
then better have some censorship.
Yes. So freedom can only be conditional. You cannot have unconditional freedom, because
Yes.
tomorrow anybody will come and do any damn thing.
Yeah, just like
So,
as soon as I take out my bike or car,
hmm,
I have to in my house. You cannot say I'm in my house. I don't come under BNS. No,
hmm.
I have to follow BNS, Bharat Nyaya Samhita. Though I may be in my room, my flat. Yes.
Now, my biggest problem, Swamiji, here is younger generation thinks that
Mm,
using filthy language,
mm,
adult jokes
mm.
makes them cool. There is a
Right.
problem with that attitude. So, see whether they mean it, they really mean what they said. We don't know their intention. But the whole point is that was a comedy show, and a person who has a stature of this hosting, chief finance ministers and Rajya Sabhas and or Lok Sabha MPs, if he speaks something like this.
You see what has happened. These are all, you know, these things like, you know, all these shows, comedy shows, vulgar vulgarity forms the basis, and they all originate from America. And US they originate from, and we are good in copying. It's example of crow, the old crow and the new crows. So old crow may get tired of picking out the filth, but the new crow is very enthusiastic. So we are simply emulating, copying whatever all the filth goes on, you know.
Aping the West in
Aping the West. नकल में अक्ल चाहिए, वो अक्ल नहीं है हमारे.
Hmm.
So we are aping all the rubbish talk. They sit around. I am aware of that kind of, and they sit around and talk all these things, and that's what we are aping. Now the thing is, this our these leaders, these the youth leaders or the influencers and our youngsters. There is a method to madness. There is a saying in Sanskrit, Vyasanam Shatrum Yojayet. You are my enemy. I don't need a weapon to kill you, actually. If I can simply engage you in some vices, if I can simply, spoil your habits, my job is done. So India need not be attacked with missiles. India need not be attacked. Ruin the youth of India.
Yeah.
What kind of this generation, if you are talking of frivolous generation, how they'll become responsible citizens or soldiers or So this was methodically organized. There was, our Srila Prabhupada used to say, Calcutta there is a street called Potterley Street even today. Why it was called Potterley Street was British hired a bunch of prostitutes. We call them sex workers today. Little more decent word. They were hired with pots, and they would be sitting in dark alleys of Potterley Street, and young men, the rich man's sons, they would be going, hanging around, and they would be given. Nobody drank in India. It was very, I mean, these things were not at all common. People have brewed, they were brewing, baby. Since always existed, it is only question of prevalence we are talking. There was, one lady was insulted. Insults have existed, Mother Sita, Draupadi, but then you end up with word wars on that, on one incident. Today we have 90 reported rapes every day, with nothing much happening practically. So the point is that so the standards, so then you end up with those addicts, drunkards. So like that, I feel that there is an agenda, in spoiling our youth. There is an agenda, hidden agenda, and I feel a country something like China, they understood these things long back, and they probably by censoring. I am not again saying good or bad about it. I don't know, but point is, morals, character should be shielded. There is a great necessity to do that, because that is, once it's lost, you lose everything. Will be lost.
Makes a lot of sense. This is like these shows are actually aping the West in the most blind way and overdoing than the West are doing.
Yes.
And spoiling the youth of the country. So there are people who come up and say coming up and saying that such a shows like India Got Latent should be banned. Samir Rainas of the people should be definitely prosecuted for what they are doing of contaminating youth and making obscenity and vulgarity as new normalcy.
Right.
See, that's not. But my whole problem is see how deluding this chap is that he's hosting all the spiritual people at one side in his personal show, and second, he has such a less respect for parents and less respect for Indian culture, tradition. Freedom of speech, as you have said, if they can make jokes out of their own mother, their own parents, then tomorrow they can make joke of this land, they can make joke of the country, they can make joke of their nationality, and it can, there is no boundaries for this.
You see, humanity versus animality.
Hmm.
In humanity, we have certain restrictions. In animal kingdom, these restrictions don't exist. That's why we are called humans.
Yeah.
You see, Srila Prabhupada actually gave an example. There is a piglet. Piglet is suckling, drinking mother's milk. And then after drinking a while, it tries to goes behind and tries to mount its own mother.
Hmm.
Because in the pigs kingdom society, there is no concept called sister, mother,
Yeah.
or daughter, whatever.
Hmm.
In animal kingdom, these restrictions don't exist. So you want to end up with an animal civilization, or we want to have a human civilization. There is a concept of marriage in human society just to restrict these tendencies, just to regulate. You see, there are innate tendencies all living beings have, right from ant to, we say, Lord Brahma. Innate tendencies are there, but they need to be regulated. Why? You need what you call, LPG to cook. But imagine an LPG without regulator.
Yeah.
It can cook your meals, or it can blast your house, cook your whole house.
Yes. Yes.
So society needs regulation.
Hmm.
Life has to be regulated. That's why even LPG cylinder has a word regulator. So today's world, if you think it's our free for all, we can do anything, that's not how human society has to work. And that is why the Vedic injunctions are there. A society has to be guided by the scriptures. And what are those scriptures? That applicability is taught by the acharyas. The problem is our acharyas have become the few what you call talk shows of America. But India has to be, our acharyas were Ramanuja, Madhva, Shankara, then Nimbarka, Vishnu Swami, Chaitanya. These were the acharyas. India has to be, guided by these. You don't follow them, the result is in front of us. We have the result. You don't have to go out, pick up any news, switch on any channel. What's the political class, the morals? Rapes. Can you imagine? The other day, somebody in Bombay, the lady got hit and lay dying on the street. Somebody gets down from bus and pulls out her bangles, a dying lady, instead of helping, right in middle, and ran away. So you see the kind of more we are ending in, where we have ended up with.
Yeah. Society is degrading in its moral fabric.
At an exponential rate.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
And newer barriers are being broken.
Yeah. Yeah.
And newer.
It's a shocking reality, actually. We could never imagine that in
Yes.
India, people can come across on a big platforms like this and make joke and make mockery of their own parents' sex life. So we've broken all the barriers, Swamiji.
Yes.
But what you said is right. So there is definitely, if the youth of India is, you hit on the youth of India. If the youth of India goes into vices like this,
Yes.
and they degrade to this extent, then the country is in danger.
Yeah, you colonize its way, weakening India. So India, a nation, you don't need missiles and bombs to attack a nation. You weaken the nation. What is if you see the physiology of our younger generation compared to elder, I don't know, I never come across such a comparison. Actually, the newer generation is shorter. thinner, or
Mm.
whatever, or obese,
Mm.
the health parameters are worse off.
Yeah.
Younger generation is worse off as far as health parameters are concerned. That's my point. So how do you defend a country with a weaker, what you call,
Yeah. Physically and mentally weak, and
mentally,
morally
morally to it's a bankrupt,
bankrupt. Yeah. They stand nowhere in the moral fabric.
moral, what you call, realm. There is
Moral.
no standing.
Yeah.
So if a dog eat dog word, a jungle, you end up with somebody who's hit by in a road accident. Instead of helping, you loot. What kind of society? That's why we say progress should be betterment of people, not just things.
Yeah.
Okay, your progress, you have started your Vande Bharat, but how it was trashed on the first run.
Mm.
Dirt everywhere, people taken away the. So there should be a very moral policing is just not cannot be used in a wrong way.
Mm.
Moral, yes, morality has to be preserved. That's how because animals are end of the day are regulated by nature.
Mm.
Animals are not free. There is a nature regulating animal, and the perfect tiger does not come to eat your fruits. It's nature has designed tiger to pounce on an animal and eat,
Yeah.
but it doesn't come to drink your milk and fruits. Sorry, but we have got little bit freedom by nature's arrangement. We have given little intelligence, which we are even in mating. In their mating, they do only during seasonal mating. They are regulated, so the regulation has to be there.
So very good narrative, very different narrative. So we are actually degrading more than animal species. Animals are far better
Well,
because they're
if you have to call them, if animals had some sense, they would file a case if we call them animals.
that's a good
There
joke.
was a the two monkey kids are fighting. Moms came, hey, बच्चे क्यों लड़ रहे हैं? नहीं, इसमें गाली दी.
Hmm.
अरे क्या गाली दी? आदमी का बच्चा बोला मेरे. So, so if you see, animals would be ashamed. Animals don't like so much cheat, credit card fraud, rape so much, or murder so much, or attack. They don't attack like atom bombs and kill all of them unnecessarily.
Yeah.
There is so many things what we are doing. Actually, animals don't do.
Makes a lot of sense, Swamiji. Very thought provoking. Thank you so much for this.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.